Hey, what's up guys, Shiny here, come back with a brand new video for you guys. Today we're going to be going over everything you should be taking into account before potentially buying up Rio. Let's hop on into it. Now, buying into Rio is a very big decision, especially considering the past two majors have actually panned out decently well. It raises even more concern about potentially buying into Rio with the lower desirability that we've already seen, combined with the fact that we know people are still eager to invest into majors considering even Antwerp looked bad, but it is still in a very good position now, showing a lot of capsules with a lot of potential, or at least a lot of profit you could have already locked in. But first up, we're going to be talking about the sale of Rio. Now, as I've mentioned a ton in the past, Valve is a company and they want to make sure they can get every last dollar, especially here in Rio specifically. So the major is going to end on November the 13th, that is yesterday. But the thing is, it's not going to be guaranteed that we're going to see a sale even in the week after that. In my opinion, we're very likely to end up seeing the sale in the week of the 21st through the 25th. I think this is very likely that we could see it on the 21st, considering Valve is a US based company and that is the week of Thanksgiving. I see highly unlikely that if we don't see it on the 21st, 22nd, or 23rd, that we would see it at all during the week, and it might even be the week after that. It's very unlikely they would release something on Thanksgiving or the Friday after Thanksgiving, as in the US it's just not really common to see companies doing anything during those days. So therefore, I think it's very likely that when we do see the sale, it'll be the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, or I guess even the week after that, but it's definitely not going to be immediate. And I think the first week here, it's not going to be very likely because of something else. And that something else is the Champions Capsule. Now, as I'm recording this, the Champions Capsule has not been released, but it's very likely that it'll be either released by the time you're watching this video or released very soon after. And that's very important because Valve is trying to make the most of the money they can get out of Rio, as I mentioned time and time again, and therefore they're going to have this Champions Capsule in the store for probably at least a week, in my opinion. That's why I'm kind of leaning towards that next week for the sale of the 21st, just because they want to make sure they can get all the money they can out of the Champions Capsule, and people are not going to be opening up a ton of these, and especially if they think that the sale is going to be right around the corner. Therefore, that could be a little more incentive for Valve to push back that sale almost to the week of starting December. It's very hard to determine because it's all an estimate, but based on the past trends we've seen, I think this is most likely where we're going to end up date-wise. Now let's talk about Souvenir Packages. Now, Souvenir Packages are something I used to have a slight bit of respect for, and that is completely gone. In my opinion, I think Souvenir Packages at this point in the game have really deteriorated. We've seen Valve take on the model of trying to suck up as much money as they can, as I've mentioned over and over, and therefore you can buy a package for $3, meaning the investment opportunity, especially on the Rio ones where we've got the same exact maps as what we saw for Stockholm and Antwerp, and the least desirable souvenirs out of those three, in my opinion, leads to at least investing into the Rio Souvenir Packages. No real reason, in my opinion. I think you're going to pick up a Souvenir Packages, you'd be better off picking up a Stockholm or an Antwerp because the quantity is probably a little bit lower. Now, I can't say specifically or for sure, and this is kind of my opinion, but I think Souvenir Packages at this point have become a little bit more obsolete than people want to admit. In my opinion, I think the only profit Souvenir Packages are really going to see is when one of the maps gets removed and replaced. Other than that, I'm really not interested in picking out a ton of different Souvenir Packages for the majority of them to stay stagnant. I mean, look at the Stockholm and even the Antwerp prices for Souvenir Packages, and you can see that the majority of them really have very little movement, especially when you compare it like the Stockholm Souvenir Packages to the Stockholm Capsules. Souvenir Packages have super low demand, and people fail to realize once this major is over, there is no reason anyone's going to be opening up a Rio Souvenir Package when we've got the next major in just 6 to 8 months. It doesn't make sense, and it's overlooked every single time, overinvested every single time. Now, when it comes to everyone's main question, should you buy in? And while I think we're very early into this, especially considering this sale is most likely going to last for a significant amount of time, if we want to look at the past sales, you can just see you're going to have an opportunity to buy in, especially what we saw with Antwerp when they announced an end date and created so much FOMO. That was just the nail in the coffin for Antwerp being a terrible investment, and I can't see why they would not do that again here. Now, obviously Antwerp has recovered, but that's a little bit of a miracle story for Antwerp. They were able to turn turn nothing into something because of how bad Rio looked. And I think Rio is not going to have that same miracle happen again. Therefore, I want you to make a very informed decision before you're trying to invest in. And that's why investing in at this point, one, especially before the sale, but two, even in general for Rio, is going to be a very tough decision and something you need to thoroughly think through. And that's not going to happen overnight or even during the first or second week of the sale. But the biggest thing when it comes into buying is it is going to be a good idea to buy if you think that the demand and the supply are going to be unequal. If you think there's a high amount of demand and a low amount of supply, it's a good opportunity to buy. Now, I'm not specifically saying that, and I'm definitely not saying that with Rio here, but that's the situation you're looking for. However, in my opinion with Rio, I think it's going to be a very tough sell. I don't think there's going to be a ton of people investing in, but I think there still is going to be a lot of people investing in because of the past two majors. We saw Antwerp get miraculously bailed out, but in front of that we saw Stockholm, which has been one of the greatest investments in a long time for majors, and therefore I think a lot of people still have that on their minds. Now, obviously I have no idea about the general public, but you can see in this poll here that people have not specifically ruled it out. Well, that majority or minority, depending on whenever you're looking at the poll, it's probably not going to change at this point though. There are people who are going to be investing into Rio, big or small. You're going to have competition, but the biggest thing is when it comes down to it, what is the demand for Rio once the Rio major has passed? And we look back on past stickers, and this one is probably going to rank very low. You compare that to Antwerp, which is at a very similar price point right now, and I don't see a ton of demand for Rio after the kind of hype dies out for this major. Now, it's very possible if we see some winner, because I don't know specifically who the winner is when I'm recording this, a winner like Furia or someone that has got a ton of rallying behind them, that we could see a little bit of a come up, especially in that Champions Capsule. But overall, I think the demand for Rio is going to be very low and something you really need to make sure you know about before you buy in. The biggest thing that came with the Rio Major though is the absolutely monumental growth for the game. And I'm not specifically talking about player numbers, but I'm talking about recognizability. We've got people like Neymar, who has been involved for CSGO for a while. He's got 60 million followers, and he's been tweeting constantly about Furia and what they're doing in the finals. Now, it's going to be very hard to say specifically what this is going to do for the game's numbers and such, but I think it would be a very near impossible scenario that we don't see a significant amount of growth and or interest coming to CSGO because of this event. So many people have been enlightened about the game, and I think overall the game has looked absolutely perfect. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.